Kevin, my brother and I, plus one other student, were the only three people in the elementary school of the 300 to 400 students who were of Asian descent. We had to ride the bus to and from school. The bus ride was about 20 minutes. There was one older kid on the bus who would make fun of me because I looked different. He would ask me why my face and nose were so flat. Kids would pull the sides of their eyes and speak fake Asian language to point out how I looked different from them until they got to know me. My parents, brother, and I would walk along the sidewalk, and people we didn't know would shout across the street trying to imitate speaking in Chinese and shouting out racial slurs. Back then, items made in Japan were of cheap, low quality. My parents would teach us to just ignore them. When I went off to middle school, junior high school in those days, we were segregated by academic levels and would change classrooms to move to where our teachers were, and my peer group accepted me. I earned respect from performance, so I learned to cover shame with outstanding performance and work-based results. In Boy Scouts, I excelled at most activities and quickly became a leader. But there were some who never associated with me or my dad, who was a volunteer leader. I remember dating a girl in middle school for a short time, but I never met her father because he apparently hated Japanese people. I think because of World War II. Her dad was a Boy Scout leader in our troop. Today, I do not necessarily face outward prejudice, although I am considered a minority, so when I serve on corporate committees, they get to check the box that the committee was inclusive. Kevin's reverse prejudice. My first experience working a government contract involved developing the personnel database for the U.S. Marine Corps. Because of the data involved, we compiled statistical analyses around gender, race, ethnicity, and other demographics. Because there were over 150,000 active duty Marines, the sample sizes are large and statistically significant. I remember seeing that the Asian group scored statistically higher on the intellectual exams and taking pride in that. A type of reverse prejudice, as if to prove to all of the people that made fun of me growing up that I had a right to be respected. This was a kind of self-defense mechanism. It would take many years to process through the unhealthy thoughts of work-based self-worth. Kevin's father. When my father was in second grade, his teacher refused to let any Japanese students go to the bathroom, so many of them wet their pants. This was before internment. Of course, in response to the invasion of Pearl Harbor on December 7, 1941, over 100,000 people of Japanese ancestry were relocated away from their West Coast homes inland to concentration camps. My parents and their families, both the Ikeda and the Hata families, were relocated to the Poston camp in Arizona. There are tons of stories. Because no one knew what was happening, neither the government nor the families, the Japanese families didn't know if they should sell their property or not. Some did, some didn't. Our great-grandmother sold her lettuce farm in Salinas, California to 7 men who each became millionaires. Bud Lettuce Farm today. She died poor. All families cooperated with the government, i.e. there were no protests, and were shipped via train to concentration camps located in the desert with barbed wire and guard towers with armed guards. They moved into the barracks and used rope and blankets to make rooms to separate families, making the best of the situation. Japanese American young men volunteered to serve in the U.S. Army and formed the 442nd Regimental Combat Team to prove their loyalty to the United States. The 442nd became the most decorated unit of size and duration in the history of the U.S. Army. When the war ended, Charles Seabrook worked a deal with the U.S. government to relocate 4,500 Japanese Americans from concentration camps to work his commercial farms in southern New Jersey. He built low-cost housing and schools for them. The Japanese American Citizens League was formed to represent the voice of Japanese Americans in the U.S. government. My dad served as chairman of the Philadelphia chapter, organizing events to solidify and socialize the Japanese American family.